Here's the thing. Even though our hobby is niche, there are many ways to approach it. You can be the kind of hobbyist that spends hundreds of hours painting one miniature. You can be a hobbyist that paints as a means to an end, such as painting an army as fast as humanly possible to play a game with. You can be the person who converts amazing models like these. By the way, I have separate videos planned for each of these. It's gonna be awesome. There are even more ways to enjoy this hobby than the few I just mentioned. You can do some of them and not all of them. You can do a little bit of everything. The sky is the limit. You can also listen to my podcast, Trapped Under Plastic, that comes out every other Monday with my co-host, John. You don't even gotta paint any miniatures. I won't tell anyone.
Here's why you're wrong.
Can always rely on you, Vince, to agree with me. The only downside, if you want to call it that, is that there are many skills to learn. And while my background in miniature painting is definitely painting models for games, that was over 20 years ago. And since then, I've moved over to being more of a display painter, taking longer on each individual model. Because of this, my army painting muscle has languished, along with my other muscles. I started a Dark Eldar army that I never finished. My Greyjar army for A Song of Ice and Fire remains unfinished. Actually, that's my Stark army, and apparently a Blood Bowl team and an Infinity Squad? Ah, there's my unfinished Greyjar army. My mistake. I have 2 incomplete squads for a Kill Team. I started my Soulblight Gravelords and didn't finish them. In the process of turning my Wood Elves into a playable army for Age of Sigmar, I stopped short. Heck, I have forces for games that are entirely unpainted and even unassembled. You might wonder how one plays a game with unassembled models. Okay, my Black Tide Chosen are gonna charge your Bolton Bastard Girls. Looks like we're in. I'm gonna swing with my axes. Wait, how do you know they have axes? Look at the picture on the box, bro. What you see is what you get. It's not pretty. It's time for me to be honest with myself. I am bad at painting armies. It's not a skill I possess. I take too long painting each individual model, and I don't have the constitution required to keep pile driving into that sweet, sweet hobby death that is painting the exact same model over and over and over again, 100 times until I want to stab my eyes out with number 11 blade. Until today. I recently got involved in running and participating in an escalation league for Age of Sigmar called
Conquerors.
Now, an escalation league is a system where you play 1 to 2 games at a specific point amount, and then after that point, you increase the point limit, effectively increasing the size of your armies. They're kind of designed to make games like Wrath of Kings or Conquest or Age of Sigmar easier to get into. But it isn't only limited to larger games like these last 3. I remember when I first got into an escalation league for Guild Ball, that helped me to fully paint my entire squad for that game. Now, the main benefit of an escalation league is instead of starting with a gigantic army to assemble and paint, you can start with an army that is a fraction of the size. Here is my 500-point Soulblight Gravelord force. As you can see, I've almost finished it up. I have 10 skeletons left, and I think I figured out how I'm going to paint them, and I'll be going over that in a future video. Now, another advantage to an escalation league is that you can begin with opponents who are a similar experience level to you to ensure that the games you play are pretty balanced. And you know, you can also ensure that your opponents aren't assholes, like Dan. That guy is the worst. Just kidding, Dan, love you. Before going any further, let's hear a brief word from our sponsor. Dragon Trapper's Lodge is creating miniatures to use in D&D, from characters to monsters to terrain. They also release a massive mobile lodge every month that makes for a great centerpiece or hub for your campaign. They come pre-supported and ready to print, where you can order them on only-games.com and have them printed and shipped to your door. Only Games, if you didn't know, is effectively the OnlyFans for downloading and 3D printing sexy minis. OnlyGames.com did not approve this message. Each fun set of miniatures includes stat blocks for 5th edition D&D to use in your campaigns. This month is Halloween Weird World themed. It also includes last year's Halloween set as an added bonus, so you get the amazing deal for 100 plus minis. There's also a free mini you can download and print yourself. For those with printers, it's only $15 to get the whole set as STL files for 3D printing, which includes over 100 models. Models are made to fit in standard D&D sizes, and they specialize in creatures that you won't find in the typical monster manual. If your players are getting a little too familiar with the bog standard monsters, switch some of them out for some of these bad boys. October is almost over, so make sure you get in there before the deal is gone. Next month, we're getting Journey Through the Astral Sea, featuring fantasy space pirates and big playable airship pieces, so stay tuned for that. If you're a fan of one of their previous releases from Dragon Trappers Lodge, you can pick them up on their My Mini Factory website. You'll find links to this and their Patreon in the description below. Thank you for sponsoring this portion of today's episode, Dragon Trappers Lodge. Now onto the video. So what does running an escalation campaign in Age of Sigmar actually look like? Well, the developers, Games Workshop, have made a system for the game called Path to Glory. And in its current implementation in AOS 3.0, it's just way too much of a heavy lift, especially if you're new to the game. As if the standard version of Age of Sigmar doesn't already give you enough stuff to track in the game, Path to Glory gives you even more stuff. I often feel like a librarian while trying to play this game. In order to avoid recreating that classic scene from the '99 Mummy movie, we're going to go with a simpler option for our Escalation League, at least for now. We're going to start our Escalation League at 500 points, which is a point total that is lower than GW's recommended amount for smaller games of Age of Sigmar, but it'll be okay. We'll spend a month at each point total playing 2 games, so 1 game every 2 weeks. Now I get it, a month seems like a long time to hover at any given point total, but let me remind you that the point of an Escalation League, at least this one, is to end with a painted army. We want to make sure that we give ourselves ample time to paint each new addition to our force. Additionally, we play other games in Age of Sigmar and in general are adults with adult-like schedules. Except for Dan. That guy has nothing going on in his life at all. Just kidding, Dan. Love you. Each month we'll increase the point total by 250 points, ending on 2,000 with a fully painted army. And if you're following along and doing a little bit of math, that means we'll finish this campaign in next year, March. Place your bets now if we actually finish the campaign by then and if we have painted armies. Given the success rate of my army painting projects on this channel, I would say we're a little Also, the first game at every single point total will allow for a force reorganization. This means if you've got a big, nasty model like a zombie dragon that is way more points than 250, you can remove stuff for your army to make space for that big, awesome model. Plus, Big Daddy GW doesn't care how often you reorganize your force as long as you're buying more of that sweet, sweet plastic crack. As we get higher and higher in points, we'll include extra details like behemoth-style models, battle packs, and more. I want more books. I've created a handy spreadsheet that shows the time period for each game, the pairings, the scenario, and other helpful info that anyone can reference during the campaign. If you want to force your friends to play the nerdy games that you love with you, at least make it easy for them. There's actually a VOD available of my very first game in the campaign on my VOD channel, Miniac's Backlog, if you want to check it out. We're going to be streaming 1 to 2 games of Age of Sigmar on my Twitch channel on Thursdays at 7 p.m. CST, and if you're interested in checking that out, the link is in the description below. That was a lot of talking, and I have some hobbying to do before my next game of Age of Sigmar, so let's start that right now. These are gravesite markers. In a Soul Blight Gravelord army, they represent a spot on the board where cool, unique, undead things can happen. And there are no models for them, which allows for a fun opportunity to do some conversion. I did my conversion with bits from the Cursed City box. That's all for now, mini fam, but I have 2 requests for you. One, if you want to know more about
Conquerors.
please let me know. It could be a fun series on the channel if you guys are into that. 2, if you've run an escalation league for the current version of Age of Sigmar and there were details of your campaign that you were fond of, let me know those as well. Maybe it can inspire the direction of our campaign. If you want to support the channel, there are many ways you can do that, such as buying my merch. Steady, steady. Oh God. Like this sick Backlog Golem t-shirt. You can also become a patron of mine and get rewards such as a Discord server where you and I can hang out any day of the week and chat about your miniature painting projects, or gambling on the fact that I end this campaign with a fully painted 2,000 point army. You can also buy hobby tools that I recommend with the links in the description. Those are affiliate links and I get an extra kickback and no extra cost to you. Subscribe or die! And most importantly, don't forget to hate more minis! All right, puppies, you gotta be good for daddy. Good boy, Crushy. Good boy, Crushy. Okay, relax. Hi. You did good.